Hi, good evening, and welcome to another streaming from Animation Pandemic, which is me, I guess. So today we're going to do something a bit more tranquil than chat with other people. Today we are going to animate a little bit. In particular, I really need to do some animation for a video game I'm working on, and the people I'm working with, they made it possible for me to stream the process. So this is probably going to be some interesting thing. Although I have to say that I have to animate a character that I don't often animate. So let's have a look at what I have to do in here. So let's leave my channel for a second. The game I'm going to animate for today is called River Tales Stronger Together. And I already did an animation for this project. I did one of their social animation that you can find on their website. Actually, you know what? I'm probably going to drop the link in the chat in here so that you can visit it if you want. I played the prototype and I really liked it. I really had fun. So I thought, that could be interesting. Now, the problem with this game is that there is a cat and I need to animate the cat running. So, and I really never animate a cat running. So I think it's going to be interesting for me. So let's have a look at, first of all, references. So I have found this video reference of this dude who is following his own cat in slow motion and in real time. And I already have some sort of walk cycle for the cat myself. If I go for a second into the Unity software where the game is made and I try my animation test scene, I already have some sort of walk animation, you see. Now, however, I would really like this animation to transition into a run. Ciao, Alexandre. Thanks for joining us. And thanks to anybody who is joining us tonight. So as you see in here, I already have a walk for my character in game. And what I would really like to do is to also make a run so that if the character reaches a certain speed in game, I can make it run. It doesn't need to, it's going to be having a very different aspect in my opinion from a typical run of a cat, because the cat has such a small head compared to my character, which has, if you think of it, a massive head. It's a cute character indeed, but the head is so big that requires a certain change in the way you animate it. You can't make the head move too much with this guy because it's going to move quite a lot if it moves even a little. So let's have a look at our references to begin with. What I'm going to do is this kind of run, which is more of a galloping run than a simple, I think it's called a trot for quadrupeds. So I found some videos online. At the beginning, I was really looking at a faster run like this one. I mean, this run is awesome, but in game, as far as I understand it, there will never be something as quick as this run. It's a beautiful run, but it's not going to happen in game, I think. And I suspect that with a character like this one, it will be also particularly difficult to achieve this run. So this is probably not going to happen, not tonight anyway. So let's have a look at the run again. So when I look at the run, one thing that I really notice is that the body is essentially balancing itself up and down and rotating around some sort of center as the character runs. So in my opinion, maybe before even getting to animate the paw action, I would want to nail that body action. And once that body action works, I might have to look at the feet, but I will try going body first with this animation. In general, going body first is not a bad idea at all, not in my experience anyway. So I think I will try that. I already have downloaded the video and already have made my frame sequence just to make it faster. However, before importing the frame sequence, I really want to to highlight one of the little problems Maya has, one of the many issues that you might have with any software really. So for instance, when you download videos, very often you're downloading MPEG-4 videos, and Maya does let you import MPEG-4 videos. If you go under view, wait a second, Maya does let you import videos, but not MPEG-4. If you go under view, image plane, import movie, you will find that let's go to the folders that we see what we find out. You will find that the MPEG-4s aren't really visible in there. That's because by default Maya can import MOV files, but not MPEG-4, which is a bit of a problem, I think. However, essentially MPEG-4s are MOV files. So if you grab an MPEG-4 and you rename this MPEG-4 to MOV, there you go. Oh, I can't because it's opened in Premiere. Oh, let me just close Premiere for a second. There you go. Now you see that Maya sees it. In practice, Maya is automatically filtering MOV files. You could avoid that, I guess, by going into the file type and select all files in there. And that should work. Let's see. In fact, it wasn't even needed to rename the file. What was I thinking about? So usually I just work, and I guess you can tell it, usually I just work with frame sequences, not really with videos. I feel like frame sequences are a bit more reactive. So in fact, into my references, I'm going to grab, instead of a movie file, I'm going to work with a frame sequence. So hopefully less memory will be employed. So image plane, import image. Let's have a look and find the frames of the cut run. There you go. And these are my frames. They don't play, but I can set the image plane to image sequence to play, and now I have my animation there. So I think as a first thing, I really want to find out where the cycle starts and when it ends. So usually I try to find contact poses for any locomotion cycle. And it seems to me that at 35, for instance, we have one contact pose. And it's with the front right leg. And the next time, oh, then we have the slow-mo there. So that's going to be tricky because the slow-mo is very slow, but we're going to play a trick in there and see if we can maybe speed it up in Maya without going back to Premiere and having to re-edit, re-export. So in the slow-mo part, I'm going to find the contact pose of the front right leg. This one seems to be the contact at 101. And I guess as an image number, well, I guess I can maybe offset this animation by 101 frames so that the contact will happen on frame 1. Then I will find the next contact. There you go. This 102 seems to be my next contact. Now the problem with this thing is that the run will go very slow, so that's good for me to understand what's the motion there, but it's not as good to, if say I wanted to get the timing, for instance. So one thing you can do is you can speed up this image plane. So for instance, if I know that on frame 1 of my timeline I have image number 1. So, and then you see that as I scrub through the timeline, the image number in the attribute editor is increasing as I scroll the timeline. So in practice, that image number is what drives the frame which is being visualized here. So that means that at frame 1, I will have my frame 101 from the original frame sequence, and at frame 102, I will have frame 102 of the image sequence instead, so of the original image sequence, I guess. So I guess I could do something like this. I could delete the expression in the image number and set this frame on 102 to frame 102 in the image number and set a key there. Then on frame 1, I can set the image number to be 1. Now as I press play, you see that I'm still pressing play, but this time I'm controlling the playback through my keyframes. That means that if there are keyframes, there will be a curve. So one thing that I could do now will be almost the equivalent of time warping the footage in an editing software. So for instance, I could set the tangents to weighted. Now I could keep, you see that by operating the tangents, now I will keep the animation a lot slower at the beginning. There will be almost no change in the image sequence there. You see it's super slow motion. And then towards the end it accelerates. This is a great device for you, actually for me now, to manipulate the reference videos and set the speed to what I need. It's a lot faster than doing it in edit. And very often you don't want to go back to the edit software, rework the edit, re-export. So in this case, I certainly want the tangents to be set to linear. And if I want this animation to go faster, I can just grab this key and move it closer to the left hand side of the timeline. You see now we're going a bit faster, and then we're going to be a bit faster. So you see that now I can actually decide what's the speed I want from my animation, which is great. And if I wanted this animation hi PK Maniac, thank you for joining us. If I wanted this animation of the image plane to play along at the same speed after my last keyframe, all I need to do is, well, I want to show the infinity curves and then go curves, post-infinity cycle with offset. And this way, the animation, the image plane will run at the speed I want. And if I want to slow it down, all I need to do is to grab this key, up key and just move it. And now you see I can play it in slow motion again, and so forth and so forth. So this is a very handy way of managing your references in Maya, so that you don't have to go back to a Premiere, so an editing software, for instance. I'm going to set the frame per second to 30 because it's a game after all, and I really want to play the animation at 30 as a frame rate. So now I think my next mission is to find the speed I want for this cat. I can't really make it run too fast because I always have to be mindful. Let's move this to the depth of the scene. I always have to be mindful of the fact that my character is really a lot different from an actual cat. I mean, yeah, it has 4 paws and a head, but the proportions are very different. So I won't be able to make the cat run as fast. I think I can just speed up a little bit and just see there, that's a bit too slow. I will speed it up even more. There you go. Maybe a gallop that has the speed of a trot could be a good way for this character to run. We'll maybe make it a little bit faster. There you go. Something like this maybe could work. It could work. I'm mindful, however, that this has to be a loop. So I probably want this loop to end on a odd number, so that the actual length of the loop, which starts on frame number 1, by the way, I should probably snap this to frame number 1, will be even. So now if I start the loop at 1 and end at 22, the loop is actually lasting for 21 frames. So that's going to be a bit of a problem when I animate. So in general, it's a better idea to end up your loop on an odd number if you start animating at frame 1, so that you will find the breakdowns a bit more easily on your timeline. So there you go. This looks about fine. Maybe I can speed it up even more. Let's see what happens if I go at 19. It's going to be a tough call because I'm pretty sure I will pick a number and then I will probably want to speed it up or slow it down. I think this is a bit too fast for the character we have, so maybe 17. 17 might work. It's fast, but it's soft enough, and I want this run to feel soft. I don't want it to look very aggressive. After all, this is a game about a cute cat going around the screen, so I really need to make sure that it looks cute in motion. So I will set my timeline to between 1 and 17, and there you go. I have my animation there. I probably want to offset this plane a little bit to the left and higher up. Let me know if my music is a bit too loud. It sounds okay in my headphones, but I'm not sure it's too loud. I did the recording to test it, really. So now we have the cat, we have the image plane, and the image plane runs at the speed we want. And we also identified, hopefully, the same pose you see at the beginning and at the end of the image plane. Well, the next best thing that one would like to have in this case would be to track the reference so that the character stays always at in the same spot relative to screen space. And I should have tracked this thing earlier on in an editing software, I guess, but that doesn't mean you can't track it now. So for instance, I could set a key on the offset. Let's say that the character at the beginning is here, and I want to maybe keep that same distance from the screen. So I can maybe make a cube to remind me of where the character is. There you go, that's the nose of the character. Then I can grab the image plane, and at 17 I can just grab actually I need the offset, not the size. So I can just key the size at 17, the offset, and just translate it to the right until the nose of the cat is more or less in the same position. And this would be the equivalent of tracking your footage, which is something you want to do, in my opinion, if you want to use live action references. You will spot a lot more nuances in the pose changes if you have your footage tracked. So now let's see, 1 second, what we can do in there. So we have our tracking. You see now the cat stays where it's supposed to be, which is nice. I can maybe try and see if linearizing these tangents is going to give me a more stable track. That's more or less okay. So now you can understand even more if the nose is moving back and forth, if you've tracked your footage. And that's why it's important to track your footage if you have an image plane. So really, really useful. You can easily do that with a bunch of free software. You don't really have to buy Premiere or After Effects. So there you go. So time for me to start the animation. Now this rig is working quite okay, but the facial rig is slowing it down a little bit. So for the time being, what I'm going to do is to go find the facial rig in my rig and just disable it. There you go. And I will enjoy the green there. And now I guess I can start my cat animation. So let's have a look. As a first pose, you see that the pelvis is moving up between 1 and 3, staying up there and then falling down again later. And then it goes on with this cycle over and over. Nice. And I really want to do that. I really want to nail that body motion. So let's see how we can do that. I guess I have two options in here. I could use the IK spine. Maybe I want to select only controls. I could use the IK spine, you see, and just animate the two controllers and not rotate the root. But I could also rotate the root and then counter animate those two things. Another method that I could evaluate would be to animate the root, and once I'm happy with the root, transfer the animation from the root to the two controllers there, and then that would maybe make the animation a bit easier. Hi Luigi, thank you for joining us. So let's try and do it. I will try with the root approach, with the idea that once the root sort of waves the way I want, I will be able to maybe transfer the animation to the two individual IK controllers. Let's do it. We don't really have much time to do this animation. I really hope to get to a decent level in the hour and a half I have to do this call. Let's see if that's possible. So I will grab the root, and I'm already unhappy about the naming of the root. You see how long the namespace is. I just don't like that. It makes it difficult to understand what you're working with. So in the reference editor, I'm going to grab the reference and just rename the namespace to cat. And very often Maya throws you a cat1, a 1 number. I'm just going to click out, click in, delete the 1, and now I get the namespace I want. And you see that now the names are a lot easier to catch. I just can't work with a long namespace. It's unnecessary. Although namespaces are necessary indeed. So let's close this one and let's save. Let's check that I have autosave enabled, because I have Animbot right now installed, but And Animbot does save the animation for me, but you can never be too careful, I think. So let's raise up the body there. And here comes something that can make your animation a bit easier. If you animate the body moving up and down, all these legs moving, and you don't really need the legs or the head, one thing that you can do is you can maybe select the faces that you don't need from the character, like for instance the head, and you can maybe hide those faces so that as you animate you won't be distracted. You won't be distracted by stuff that you don't need. There's no need to be very precise. Let's see, so these guys are the faces. I don't need the tail either, and I definitely don't need the legs to distract me right now. Oh, this is the wrong camera. There you go. So these legs in here, I don't really need them. Maybe that loop I'll keep. And this one will go. There you go. So of course you want to be able to show them back very quickly later on. So one thing you can do is to create a selection set, a quick select set. And this is going to be, I can call them, I guess, faces. I can add it to the shelf. There you go, it's going to go there. I'm going to store the shelf just in case Maya is going to crash on me. And now I'm going to hide them. So, I forgot something it seems, so that now I can select them again and unhide them once I feel I'm ready to animate again. So I'm going to create a new quick selection set. Faces. Every time I make a live with animation, my neck gets incredibly stiff because I'm never sure I will be able to pull the animation off. And especially at the beginning when you plan the animation, the first passes of your animation may look a bit, how can you say that? They may look a bit intimidating, as if they are not coming out that nicely. So in general, I'm a bit tense when I have to do a live with animation. There you go. I prefer to do animation in a peaceful environment where it's only me witnessing my mistakes, right? So now you see that I can only see the body, and that's going to make it possibly a bit easier to animate. So the body was higher, we said, and then what happens between 1 and 3 or 4, I guess, let's say, goes down, I guess 4, is that the body raises a lot at the back and lowers a little bit at the front. So I'm going to rotate it and raise it. And at the beginning maybe I will lower it. So that's the motion. So I really want to have that motion. I don't know if it's called cantering motion. Not really sure. So that could possibly work, I guess. Then at around, now I'm trying to find the extremes, so the lowest and highest point of this character. It seems like the lowest point is somewhere at around 15. So maybe before setting that key, I'm going to create the same pose that I have on 1, so that there will be already some interpolation going for me. And then, I don't know why I said 17 when I meant 15. And then I'm going to reset the body, lower it down, and raise it up on the front so that the bum is at the bottom. And I think between 15 and 17 the bum is going a bit too high up. Now the problem is that in here you would want to probably lower 17 and then raise 4, right? The problem is that if you lower 17 in here, then you have to lower it in here. So, and what can I do? Maybe I want to just duplicate 4 to 20 so that at 17 I can delete this key And this way, you see, I already get some interpolation going up. And this way I can check if that moves the way I want. And you see that that works already. That was lucky. It doesn't happen too often. So I'm going to just increase the rotation a little bit on 17 so that it's not linear motion. So now between 15 and 17, the bump goes up a little. And then between 17 and 20, that's when it moves up the most. So you see, I'm looking for changes in relative spacing, really. And by stabilizing the footage, I'm making this a bit easier. Also, I'm noticing that as it goes down, the nose probably moves a little bit more forward. So maybe I could on a layer, and please notice that my default tangents are auto tangents. I don't really do the first poses with stepped. I no longer. Hi Rolla. Actually, welcome aboard, Rolla, and nice to see you again. Actually, I no longer set my default tangents so that they give me stepped, and I explained that in a video on my YouTube channel, which I will have to find somewhere. Actually, let's find it since we are at it. So, and the video received some flack from someone, I think, but then I explained why I did the stuff I do. Where is it? There you go. This one is the one. So this video here explains why I no longer block my animation jotting down step tangents by default, and instead I use auto tangents. And you will find, I mean, watch the video in one moment you have time and see if it makes sense to you. I find it's a lot easier for a number of reasons, and also for when you have to use animation layers, having stepped can be a problem. There you go. And now I have 15 to 20. You see there, I have this animation. I want 15 to 20 to transition a bit forward, but I have 3 poses. But one thing I can do, I can put the control on a layer, and at 15 set a key, at 20 set another key, and just move the character forward ever so slightly. Now that movement is going to be spread over 2 poses, remember, 17 and 20. So that's one way you can tweak a number of poses. I can then merge down the layer. Now I have installed a tool for merging down layers a bit faster. I'm not going to use it tonight, maybe another night, because I used it just a little bit, and it merges down layers a lot faster, in fact, but also it doesn't support Smart Bake, so I'm not going to use it tonight. So in here, these 17 and 20 are, I've just started Rolla anyway, don't worry. So between 17 and 20, I'm doing an animation for a video game called River Tales. This guy is in here. And so I have already made a walk and some social animation, but I really need to do a run. So I duplicated the poses that I changed later at this stage in here, and I duplicate them here. So now I can check. You see, I start to have the motion I need, and you see that before inverting the rotation of the body, the character sort of keeps that pose quite a long time, something like 2-3 frames, if that can be called a long time indeed. So maybe I can go to frame 6, set a key on that control, and you see that between 4 and 6, the chest is almost perfectly stabilized. It is actually quite impressive as a feat, while the bum keeps moving forward and up. So I'm going to just lift it up some more, move it forward ever so slightly. Actually, maybe not. Maybe I won't move it forward. There you go. And I think I want to move it forward even a little bit more. The idea is that I want to keep the chest there and still give the idea that the bum is raising quite a lot. There you go. And it is raising quite a lot. Maybe I can move the chest a little bit forward in here. There you go. So now that I have the bum up there, that's when you see the motion, the counter animation, the clockwise motion starts on the body. It's a bit like a boat rocking in the sea, if you think of it. If you get that rocking motion right, then even if your feet are not amazing, it's going to look good anyway. And you have to remember always what we are animating for. I mean, this is the character, and this is how big it will be in game. So the body does most of the job in this animation. The feet are barely visible. So I want to maybe find a way for the body to be very good looking, and the head to be nicely stabilized, but the feet themselves are not so important right now anyway. So let's see what happens next. What's the next high point? And there seems to me that there's a point in here when the chest starts to move down. So maybe I can go in there and find the extreme with the chest up, and you see with the chest up, the chest is much higher than it used to be, between 6 and 12 in here. There you go. And the body and the bum is more or less the same height, a bit lower actually. Maybe not as low as I have it, so I'm going to lift it up a little bit. There you go. How are your body mechanics exercises going, Rolla? And now between 6 and 12 I am going down a little bit, maybe a bit more. I really want the chest to raise a little bit more in here. There you go. And hopefully this will be enough. Now if I press play between 1 and 17, I should be able to see the motion. You see, it's important that we get that motion right, and then everything else will or should come on its own at a later stage. Maybe I can just move the character there just to see what's the difference. My ups and downs are a bit harsher than this one. So let's see what happens in here. Yes. Well, sadly, I mean, we knew that was. I didn't know that they could reject an application. Rolla is applying to an animation school. I didn't know that they could reject your application, but remember I mentioned that it might be a bit too much of a jump to go straight into advanced character motion. So, but it's not a bad thing anyway. I mean, if your base is solid, you won't waste your money on a higher level course. Because I mean, if a school lets you in for an advanced course, and they think your bases are not good enough for them, then it's probably a good idea. It's probably a good sign, because it means they don't want you to spend money, waste them, because maybe they feel like the advanced course is a bit too advanced for you. So it's, in my opinion, it is actually a good sign, however sad, because of course you want to do the course you want to do. Alexandra, same thing. There you go. So Rolla, Alexandra, who's also studied with me, wanted to go to Indian school. I didn't know, Alexander, that they wanted to make you start at on level 1. Maybe you two can connect, guys. So in here I want to check again the motion. So sorry for being distracted by the chat, my fault. And maybe in here it feels like in this transition the chest raises a bit faster in the reference than it does in my animation. So I can just, I guess, raise it, I guess. There you go. Maybe not as much. And there you go. Now I have more or less the motion, I guess. Nice. There you go. It's okay. Body mechanics is super difficult. That's why I'm always whichever school I teach at, I'm always trying to push for having body mechanics as part of the curriculum, as a basis, because it really unlocks a lot of doors. It also requires a lot of time, which is why very often it's difficult for students to get it. It requires a lot of time. So there you go. Now I have my animation there. It looks okay. It does what it needs to do. It looks like a gallop. Now the problem is that in the reference, the cat is stretching quite a lot. Let's move the cat to the side. If I look at the reference, the spine in here is fairly compressed, and if I look at the curvature, this is kind of the curvature. Sorry, I am Wacom-less right now. And then as it runs, you see that the line of action changes quite a lot and stretches. So these are two extremes. Let me draw this again. Wow, that went okay. So you see that we have this line of action changing. So I'm quite okay with the idea of having the master go up and down for the galloping action, but I think now we need more control on the individual controls of the spine. So let's get that control, right? I don't want, however, to counter animate those two controls too much. So maybe one thing that I could do is to transfer the animation from the root to those two controls. And a tool that could help me do that would be the World Bake tool by Morgan Loomis, which I use quite a lot. I mean, they should probably build a monument to this gentleman. So with the World Bake tool, I can store the animation onto locators by selecting the controls, store the animation. There you go. Oh, actually, before doing that, I probably want to. You don't want to get to the days of animating with a mouse or touchpads. Well, touchpads is never a good idea. Animating with a touchpad, because PK Maniac is mentioning in the chat. I had students who claimed that they were just as fast with the touchpad as they were with a mouse, but I never bought into that. I think a touchpad is just a painful tool for animation, and a mouse is a bit better. I tried the Wacom, but I just find that selecting with a mouse is faster for me. The Wacom is better for my wrist, however. So let's say I want to translate the animation from the root to these two controllers. I'm going to select the free objects and set a key on every pose for all of them. Then with just the two controllers selected, these IK spine controllers, I'm going to bake the selection to locators. And now you see I have two locators, which are pretty small, but I will make them bigger so that you see them. And these two locators move like my controllers. Not bad, not bad. Actually quite good indeed. Now I can grab the root in there, maybe zero it out altogether, and you're going to think, oh, that's crazy. I'm going to spoil my animation, right? Probably I am. Now I can delete the animation on the root. Ooh, scary stuff. And then I'm going to grab the two locators, bake from locators, and bake selected locators back to objects. And now if the rig doesn't throw huge issues at me, I should have exactly the same motion I had earlier on with exactly the same keys, but this time around I'm doing this with these controls, which means I can now stretch the spine. This is a bit of I think it's called a layered animation approach, in which you don't do the complete pose for your character, but you make the main parts move first and you clean the motion a little bit, and then you move on to other parts and so forth. It's a different approach than the pure pose to pose, and there are different schools of thought. I think they're both equally useful, to be honest, and well, but for this kind of animation I kind of prefer to use a layered approach. So I'm going to store this animation here. It is going to be my run version 2. There you go. I could have stored the animation of the root, really. I was a bit reckless. And now with these controls I can take care of the stretch a little bit. So you see that between 1 and 4 the chest moves forward, so I can just push the chest forward. Or maybe it's the bum that moves back. Or maybe it's both of them. let's do both. There you go. And then between 4 and 6. Maybe I don't want the chest to come back that quickly. I will delay it a little bit. And I will move the bum forward, just like in the reference, and even higher, why not? And maybe I can start now changing the curvature of the spine a little bit. And then in here we have an upward motion of the chest, quite a lot, so I'm going to push it a little bit more and invert the curvature there. I will probably need this middle control as well, because you see it gives me a little bit more control. So I'm going to select it and I'm going to find out whether this can be useful to me. And then let's go to frame 9, where I think I have another key there. And I really want to, I don't need the grease pencil tool now, it's just getting in the way. Where's the grease pencil? There you go. And that's the curve. I'm not sure with this rig I will be able to achieve that curve. I will try it a little bit, but not really sure. There you go. And then I go back to 12, see what's the curve in there. Still pushing up. Well, as much as I can anyway with the rig. I mean, the rig is not, this rig, I made this rig, but it's not really designed to deform quite a lot. It wasn't really ever in the plan. So, and frame 17, I want to make sure I have exactly the same pose that I have at 1. There you go. And in here, at 15, I have the moss stretch from the chest. You can clearly see there's some stretch going on in there. So I'm going to maybe stretch forward and maybe even stretch the bum a little bit backward and invert the curve a bit more. And there you go, and we go at it again. Now if I press play, you see that I start to have a little bit of stretch, squash and stretch in the animation. So it's not quite as elegant as a cat. But when they approached me for this project, one of the first things I said is that animating a cat is probably the most difficult thing I know in 3D. Because it's difficult. I mean, cats are so flexible. It's really going to be hard for an animator to grasp that level of complexity. Now that we have our controls, we can give them a little bit of a cleanup. So I'm going to go grab the bum, and you see that the bum goes backward and then accelerates forward. So let's go find this curve. So this is the curve accelerating forward. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make it a little bit gentler. There you go. And then instead of having it run that forward that much, I'm going to invert the curve a little bit in a gentler way. There you go. And then the inversion of motion is going to happen somewhere over here. Now, if I want, let's see the loop in here just to get an idea of how curves work in a loop. If I want this to loop, I'm going to cycle pre post infinity, and in here you can see the curve of the cycle. You see it kind of stops and starts again. So maybe I can just grab these guys, and maybe I could even lower this pose. I want to lower it with it. There you go, which means basically moving it back. So let's see how this could work for us. I'm rather curious. There you go. Now I press play. You see it doesn't have that jerk anymore on the way forward and backward. It's a lot gentler now. That's cool. And I want to also clean the up and down just to see what happens. So it goes up, stays up a little bit longer than mine in the reference, so I'm going to just adjust it. And then as it goes down, probably goes down a bit faster at the beginning and a bit slower at the end, so I'm going to increase the speed of this one. And then just like I did for the other curve in there, I'm going to just, whoa, not this thing. I'm just going to make sure these loops, in fact, why not, let's make it loop. We know we're going to make it loop anyway, so let's make it loop already, so that when we fix the curves, we can already evaluate the way this connection works. And we are not really going to spend too much time cleaning this thing, but we just want the motion to be, you see, a little bit cleaner. In fact, in here, I could maybe delete that guy. If the motion is clean and if we are happy with the motion, then as we clean the rest of the body, like the legs, for instance, it's going to look a lot better. We're going to struggle a lot less. So now I'm going to press play. And the bum is kind of alright. Let's move it up there. My movements are a bit more exaggerated than those of the cat. But we're getting there, I think. And now let's have a look at the front. I guess the front will have similar issues. So we want it to move forward in here quite a lot, and that's happening indeed. There you go. And then we want to stay probably forward a little bit more. There you go. And then it will gently come back, I guess, until this point. So let's make it gentler there. Then it will stretch forward a little bit again. And I don't think it should go back, really. I think it should move forward, if anything. So I'm going to move it forward. And I'm going to check that the transition... Oh, why is this not looping? I was sure I did loop everything. There you go. So I will, there you go. I really long for the day where curves will sort of fix themselves. And there you go. Now, there is a lot of action in the chest there, which is nice to see because it makes the character feels like it's working. But I think I could make it softer. Yes, Alexandre, I think focusing on one part of the body at a time for this specific kind of animation is quite okay as a workflow, at least for me. It's not quite the same, in my opinion, if you're doing complex acting animation where you really want the body poses, the body language to be very, very clear. So I wouldn't approach an acting scene the same way, I think. Although I would approach the cleanup the same way. I would probably start from the body and so forth. So let's have a look at the y-axis, which as you see is controlling the way up, but it moves up, stops there, and I mean this action really isn't quite good. I think first of all between 1 and 4 I can tell that the chest is moving a lot lower in the actual cat than it is in my animation. So I'm going to lower it quite a lot in there. And if you think of it, it does make sense in the context of, and I don't know why my curves are not looping, it does make sense in the context of the existing curve. So if I look at the y curve was already going down. It doesn't make sense that it stops and starts moving up again. So in here, in fact, the motion should be going down. Just a second, there you go. From oh, I thought I got it wrong. There you go. The motion was going down and I want it to keep moving down gently, which means that probably this key is really unnecessary there. Before deleting a key, it's a good idea to just be there with the timeline so that you can see if that's proving a massive difference, if it's making a massive difference. There you go. Now as I press play, there you go. You see now it's a lot softer and I'm emulating some of that stretch. I don't want to stretch this too much, to be honest, because I mean, there's a texture in it and I don't want the bands of the texture to become, I don't know, 3 or 2 times the size they had at the beginning. It's going to be very evident, especially from the front view. But you see that now, from the top view, sorry, but you see that now the motion from the top view is moving quite alright and looks fairly organic, in fact. It's not too bad. And I mean, I'm talking a lot in here, but all in all, it took us about half an hour to get here. So now I have my animation there. This is a rather visual effectsy approach to animation in my experience. So maybe let's increase the down more. There you go. Let's see if that looks a bit better. Yeah, that looks a bit better. Yes. Yeah. Okay, now let's have a look at the other curves, like the rotation, the forward rotation. Remember that to check rotation in Maya, you really have to be in gimbal. Otherwise, you do not know which axis you're using. You see that the object axis and gimbal axis are not rotated the same way. So really, yeah, you have to use gimbal to know what goes on in a curve in Maya. Although you can animate with whichever axis is more comfortable for the situation. There you go. So now let's have a look at the rotation, and maybe the rotation moving down this way. It's kind of cool. Let me save. And then as it touches the floor, however, I feel like it should stay more or less there. And then as it goes up, maybe I can delay the rotation on the way up a little bit. And I think this might work. And then in here, I don't really know which rotation I should give it here. I will just keep this one just because I don't know any better. And then we start over again. And again, this curve needs to be a nice, smooth, continuous curve. It feels a bit like Bob Ross when you talk this way. So now as I press play, there you go. See that? Nice and smooth. It feels a bit heavy as a cat. We will have to see. I will have to see in game, and I will have to play the game really at this stage to know if this is the right speed. Now, from the top view, we don't have any reference, which is a shame because what really unlocks quadruped animation is the top view. It tells you so much of what goes on in there. And right now, I don't have any reference. I've been lazy, I guess. But I can do some speculation. I could put the controllers on a layer, both of them, and then I can think, okay, if the left leg at the back is stretching backwards, then maybe what's going on in here is that the spine is rotated this way to favor that leg, right? So maybe I will do that, in fact. Let's see. I'm doing this on a layer. And then if the left front paw is extending forward, then possibly what's going on is that the spine is rotated that way to favor that motion. That could be the case. I want to look at it from the top view just a second, and I want to see how this looks like with and without the change. And you see that changes quite a lot. So I think this could work, and then I guess there will be a moment in which this will change. So for instance, it seems to me that maybe at around 9 or 10, I could have the left side of the chest being backward to favor this leg being backward. So I will maybe start by zeroing out the layer. There you go. And then I will just counter rotate, and I imagine that maybe the left hip will be a bit more forward. And now as I press play from the top view as well, there should be a bit more of organic movement there. You see that? And it's designed to favor the leg. So I'm not sure this is going to work, but maybe it's going to work. Let's see. So now that I have my animation in there, I can save. And I think it's time to check the head and the legs and so forth, the rest of the stuff. So I'm going to go into my animation shelf, go find the faces, Shift H to bring them back, and it's good to have everything back in there. And in here, I'm unsure what I want to do. If I want to start with the head or with the legs. I would probably do the head first. So let's have a look at what the head does in there. Now this is going to be tricky. So that's the motion you see there. Once you bring the legs back, you have this motion there. So in here you see that the head really isn't nearly moving as much in the image reference. So first of all, I'm going to set it to global so that it doesn't rotate as much. And now that the head is stable, you see that since we cleaned the body, the head is already kind of working. I could even try and using an IK head in there and see how that works. But when I designed these, I didn't really think of using an IK head. Let's see if it works. So let's set the head not to follow. There you go. Now the thing I don't like about this setup I've made, and it's my fault, is that it deforms a lot in IK, so I'm not going to use IK in there. And that's a limitation of the rig I've built. Oops, I don't know what happened to... I think... there you go. So now I'm back to FK. I'm going to stay in FK. So it's global. And now this very character design is a bit cumbersome because, I mean, it's a good character design, don't get me wrong, but it's cumbersome in 3D because it's very hard to avoid intersections. So we are going to live with some intersection. What really is big is the head in here, which provides a big challenge, I think, in terms of character animation. So let's see what we can do with the head. So maybe with the head we can start. I'm going to, this is an FK head, but I'm going to treat it a bit like an IK one. I'm even going to translate it. So I'm going to start with the head a little bit lower, and every time there's a key on the chest, I'm going to set a key on the head as well. So 4, 6, 9, 12, 15. So 4, 6, 9, 12, 15. There you go. So that I don't risk offsetting the head a bit too much there. And in here, let's see what the head is doing. Maybe I can keep it higher up a little bit. There you go, so it doesn't move as much. And then I will let it go up. And maybe I will delay a little bit. I could even delete this key now, really, and see what happens there. Just delay the head a little bit as it goes up. And it will go up there, and you see there's some sort of forward motion. But that's probably because I tracked the footage there. So there you go. Now the head is a lot more stable there. From the top view, it's sort of waving left and right, and I really don't want that. So I'm going to put the head on a layer. By the way, this is not called a layered approach because I am using animation layers. And there you go. But I know that I know what moves the head left to right, and that's those keys on animation layer 1. So I'm going to line up my head keys to those keys that I have on animation layer 1. So hopefully they will counter animate a little bit better. There you go. And maybe I'm going to rotate the head ever so slightly in one direction so that it's not going to be perfectly straight as the character runs. There you go. Now, for now, I will keep the head as it is. I'm not going to do much with that. Let's do the legs. The idea is that I want to get to a state in which the animation looks okay as soon as I can, so that I can find out what are the biggest issues in there. And in here, although the chest is fairly rotated forward for the image reference, I can already tell that probably I can't rotate it that forward with this character. So there will be a lot of discussions there to be had. Now, we said contact. So the contact pose is usually straight. There you go. I will move it forward. And maybe I'm going to... Maybe I could just grab the root, which is no longer animated, and just lift it up. And that's going to lift the whole animation up if you think of it. There you go. So now I have a straight contact pose. I don't want to have any stretch in there because then I will have snaps, and I don't want to have snaps, IK pops. Probably a good idea to call in a plane at this stage. There you go. So that we can see the contacts a little bit better. And then I'm going to find the kickoff pose for this cat. And the kickoff pose is going to be the last pose in which the foot is on the ground. So I'm going to just move the leg to the back. You see that the kickoff pose is quite far back, and I want to be able to do that and push it back on my character as well in here. And there you go. And the important thing is that, remember, I'm going to move this master forward at a later stage, and I'm going to do that linearly. So I'm going to just linearly move the feet backwards. And that's going to be the speed of my character, which I can already, if you think of it, I can already set. If a very cheap way to do so would be to duplicate the controller of the foot, unparent it. When you duplicate a controller in Maya, you're not really duplicating animation, so the controller is going to stay there. And it's going to mark the position of my legs. In fact, if I go to frame 5 and move forward my master in there, if I move it forward so that the two controllers are lining up, more or less, more is better probably, ooh, something like this. There you go. So now the master is moving forward. You see there is a bit of sliding going on, and that's because, remember, linear curves are important. If the master moves forward linearly like in a game, I really want that to be set to linear, and now you will see there will be no sliding. So I always find it a lot better when I can fix the sliding already during the preliminary phase of the animation, at least in the main poses. And then I can always tweak it a little bit later. But if the animation is messy and it will slide by default quite a lot, you can bet you will find yourself going back to that animation and fixing it multiple times before you're happy. So the foot is staying on the floor and moving back. Now that I know the speed of my master, I might as well go back to 0 and just mute all the channels on my master, save, so that, there you go, so that it won't move forward anymore. Now let's have a look at what's the pose for the front left paw for the contact of the right one. So it's high up there and it's quite forward. I want to move it as forward as I can in there, but you see it's very easy to stretch, so maybe I could use the scapula in there, just cheat and move it forward. You see, that lets me go forward quite a lot. So there you go. I mean, it's going to be really difficult to even see this animation if you think of it, because the point of view of the game is here and the head is going to cover a lot of this motion, quite a lot in fact. So probably at a certain point I will have to tweak the animation. Once I played the game, I will tweak the animation to fit the game, which makes it all the more important that I make it work quickly now. So hopefully by the end of this call, in half an hour or 45 minutes, I will have something that looks like a gallop, although tweakable of course, but a gallop nevertheless, and I can put it in game maybe the next time and see how this thing works. There you go. I'm going to rotate the paw a little bit in there. And I mean, I'm being a bit ambitious here, but maybe I can even break the symmetry from the front view a little bit more. I'm going to set a key on both controls in there, and then I'm going to find the back legs. And for the back legs, let's have a look at what we have in there. So the right one, what was it doing? The right one is in the middle of traveling backward. That's going to be a bit difficult to tweak, I guess, but we can get there, I guess. The left one was about to invert the motion, I guess, and come forward. So that seems like an extreme. I guess we got lucky. So I'm going to just grab the foot, move it back, rotate it back, maybe even help with the hip controller. See what I can do really, and lift it a little bit more. There you go. So I'm going to set a key on both these guys, and maybe I can have the legs a little bit closer to one another and have the foot not rotated like the grid, so that it won't look like fully 3D animation there. There you go. You see how I am reaching the poses using the anatomical availability of my rig. So I'm using scapulas, additional hips control, whichever really gives me a nice pose, I'm going to use it. I'm not very fuzzy about the method for as long as they get me to the means and I don't hurt anybody in the process. So in here, I'm going to move the leg a little bit more forward, and that's my pose in there. I think since we played I think since we made this animation using the feet and the hips and the pole vectors, I guess I could probably make a selection set for all of these guys. So there you go, these guys in here. And now, just a second, I will try not to forget the pole vectors and the scapulas, because I'm working on these sets. I'm probably going to select these guys more often than once from now on, so I don't want to spend too much time. Now, normally, I would set this selection set as a selection set in the shelf, so I would just call it legs and just dump it there. And from now on, whenever I click on it, I select this stuff. This is the pose to shelf script, which you can find online for free. However, now since I was doing some tutorials and I wanted to animate a bit faster for this project as well, I actually paid for an Animbot license. And in Animbot, you can actually make selection set. And, oh, thank you, Alexander. By the way, I made a new tutorial on Skillshare. Actually, it's a good thing you mentioned it because I had it prepared. So I made a run tutorial on Skillshare where I make some sort of anime female run. And I actually have other tutorials on Skill. Now I have a bunch of tutorials. I have 3 of them. And I think I actually have a link for a free. Yeah, I do. Let me find it. There you go. So if you follow this link, you will get a 1 month free membership tutorial on Skillshare. So you can follow other tutorials as well. Forget about the fact that link leads you to the walk. It actually leads you to a 1 month free on Skillshare. So you can also watch other tutorials as well. So there you go. I think Skillshare asks you for your credit card or debit card when you enroll for a trial, but they don't charge you. You can cancel before they charge you. There you go. So now we have made our contact pose. And I guess I'm quite happy with it. It's not very 3D animation right now, but it sort of works. I was saying I paid for a license of Animbot. So in Animbot, you can actually store now your selection set in there. Really? My license is invalid? It was on just a few seconds ago. Well, you know what? Goodbye, Animbot. I will have to tweak it to fix it off screen later. It's a shame because I wanted to use it again. So it's just I renewed the license today. So, and I had troubles really activating it due to my own ignorance, I guess. So there you go. I will have to use the old method, which is storing the poses in there. So now I want to duplicate pose 1 at pose 17. After all, they are exactly the same pose. And I want to find out what happens to the other legs. So I'm looking for the contact of the front left leg now. And the contact seems to happen at around 4. So at 4, I'm going to move the front left leg down. And in there, I'm going to zero out the rotation of the feet. I'm going to put the paw on the floor, and I'm going to zero out the rotation, hopefully. There you go, something like this will probably do, I guess. Let me move it maybe a bit off center there. There you go, and that's going to be my contact. Again, this contact is made possible by the sponsor, the scapula, which I used, you see, to reach out to the contact. If the scapula was set to its default position, I wouldn't be able to, you see, do that contact in a nice way. There you go, so that's going to be my contact. I guess I can have a look at whichever other controllers I have in here to make the contact look a bit nicer there, but I don't think I really factored in this kind of poses too much when I was doing the rig. The rig, I have a bunch of rigs to do. Maybe this will help, this control may help. Maybe I will do a later pass with this one later, not now. So that's the contact. And now this foot will go back, travel back until the kickoff. So to find the kickoff, I will unmute the master again. You see, I'm pretty fluid with the workflow. I just don't stick too much to one single technique. And I'm going to duplicate this controller unparent it as usual. Remember, that doesn't and by that doesn't copy the keys or anything. And there are many other tools that, in fact, animbot lets you skip some of these steps I'm doing right now. So there you go. And in here, I want the master to keep moving forward, right? So I will have to find the kickoff pose in the reference, and the kickoff pose in the reference is probably frame 8 and or 9. I think 9 is probably still about on the floor, but frame 8 looks more like a contact. And one thing I can do is I can just grab this control, grab the control I duplicated earlier on, and then using maybe a snapping tool, I can just snap the translation and rotation. And for as long as this controller moves back in linear, which I am going to make it, there's not going to be any sliding at all in there. That was quick. And then I want to find out what happens to the other legs in there. So the other legs, we had the foot moving backward in there, which I can maybe duplicate the control for and play the same trick. That is, find the kickoff. And the kickoff is probably going to be on frame 2. And then on frame 2, grab this foot, grab the duplicate, and just match translation and rotation. There you go. That's going to be not sliding anymore, not bad. And then I want to find out where's the next contact for the left back leg. And the left contact seems to be probably at around 9 or so. So I think this image plane needs to move a little bit further back. There you go. Well, let's select it from here. There you go. And that's not the right image plane. This might be the right one. Let's see. Yes. Okay, so let's move it back. So let's find the contact pose for the... Oh, you have the same problem. You have to reactivate animbot. Yes, I mean, today, I bought the license today because it expired today, just 20 minutes before the call. And I struggled quite a lot to make it work. I was actually a bit annoyed at a certain point. But I'm going to fix it somehow. So in here, I want to make the contact of that foot. So I'm going to just move it forward there and put it flat on the floor. There you go, something like this, I guess. Now, and on the floor maybe, why not? Now, of course, you see, this guy is fully stretched. So one thing that I could do maybe to favor that contact, if you think of it, is to twist the pelvis this way. Why not? That's going to favor that contact. That means that when it's here, I'm going to favor the opposite way. And that's going to introduce another type of rocking motion, right? So maybe that's going to work for me. So let's go back to my contact. And there you see I can't quite reach that. So I'm going to grab the hip and zero it out and see if maybe I can cheat quite a lot with the hip, you see, with the hip, and just move the contact down. And maybe this contact is a bit too far out, now that I think of it. Maybe from the front view, I want to be a bit more inside. There you go, something like this, I guess. So I know it looks strange, but it's probably going to last for 1 frame or 2, so I'm going to try that. And then after we get the contact, we really want to stay on the floor until the next kickoff, which is going to happen at frame 14. And then, hi Anirban, I hope I'm pronouncing this correctly. Thank you for the encouragement. So in here, I'm going to duplicate 9 to 14 so that I stay there. I don't rotate the foot. But then remember, I don't want to what's the name for it? I don't want to slide, so I'm going to duplicate the control, unparent it, and just like I did earlier on, grab the actual control, grab the duplicated control, and just match and match. There you go. And you see I'm still able to be on the contact there. In fact, much of it comes from the fact that the left hip is actually sliding backward because I already animated it sliding backward. So that's quite useful, as I think you see I get a pose for free. That's not too bad. Then let's have a look. Let's now mute. Oh, I think I'm missing something. I think I'm missing I'm missing the back right leg contact. And this is one of the, or maybe not. Let's see. Actually, you see it's going down at the right time for the contact, and that's not a coincidence, I think, although I didn't plan for it. If you do your extreme poses first, and you already are interpolating as you do your blocking, then you get a lot of poses out for free. I mean, it's still a good idea to watch your blocking in step, in my opinion, although for this kind of animation, it's kind of better. I mean, it's kind of faster for me. Not, I wouldn't say better necessarily, but faster, yes, to do it straight in interpolation. So let's see what happens there. So now I have to, this is going to be a bit trickier for this last contact because I don't want it to slide, but I don't want to change pose 17 because 17 works with 2. So instead I'm going to change the contact pose. I'm going to go to 17, duplicate the control at 17, all these controls I don't need anymore. And then at 13, when I have the contact, I'm going to line up the contact to the control that I duplicated. Whoa, that's a bit extreme, right? So it moves forward and then it doesn't slide anymore. So this is going to be interesting. I'm going to linearize it so that it doesn't slide at least. So in here, the thing is that the actual contact with the foot flat on the floor is at frame 14. So maybe I can afford to just move this thing to later and snap it. And I will need some help from my friends in there, which are in this case specifically the hip moving forward and down. And maybe I can help this guy, but it's just, I think this contact is way too forward. I think I could help, of course, but I think in here I have to find out a solution for the contact. Let's have a look. There you go. Let's have a look at what we can do in here. So one possible solution in here is, let's find, first of all, the kickoff of the back right foot, and it's on frame 2. You see it's pretty much far behind, while ours is almost vertical on the weight. That's a bit too much. So I'm going to grab the graph editor. I'm going to grab the transformation curve moving forward. I'm going to move everything to the back. Something like this will do. So if I move everything to the back, you see that now as I touch the floor, with the contact, the pose is actually quite okay in there, and I don't need to cheat that much anymore with the hip in there, and also the spread between the two legs is not as much as it used to be. And this is a kind of a handy cheat. If you find yourself with one pose extended too much, you can just move the whole animation a bit forward and backward. I have to say that at this speed it looks a lot like a monkey running. I don't know if this will work in game. There you go. So now I have my animation with the legs. I wouldn't call it an animation really, but it looks like a cat running a little bit. A little bit. So let's maybe see which breakdowns we need in here. So we have the back left leg moving forward and landing to a contact. Maybe one thing that I can do is I can help, and maybe at the beginning I'm not going to move the leg that much to the front, and then the leg is moving a lot more to the front, and then as it approaches the contact I can maybe rotate it a little bit and see what happens there. There you go. That could work. And then I'm going to check the right leg, right? The left leg, the forward left leg, which I don't like anymore. So I'm going to change this pose. And I want it to, you see that as I move the left leg down, rather as the cat does it, the paw is actually rotating upwards. So I really want to do the same in here. And I will do that, I guess. I will just delay the paw. I will delay the fingers so that as I go down, you see that I'm creating that nice overlap on the way down. And then there will be the slump down, which probably is too fast. So maybe I can delay the fingers a little bit more. And one trick that you can play with creatures, yeah, thank you, Animbot. Probably I want to disable Animbot altogether until I figure out the license problem. So let's unload it. So I was saying, one trick that you can play with creatures is you can hit the floor with the spread of the toe being very little, and once you're back on the floor, you spread out to simulate the weight hitting down on the floor. And yes, I mean, cats, I think, Alexandre, cats are difficult because they can be so flexible. It's just a problem of them being really, really, really flexible. Creatures in general, they require a lot of observation and a lot of clean curves, in my opinion. You see that now I have a nice slapping motion on the way down with the left foot. It's maybe a bit too extreme. I doubt we will ever see it from the game, to be honest, so I'm not going to spend much time on it. Now let's have a look at what these poses are doing for the foot. So the foot goes down, then it flattens on the floor, which we are doing. Maybe I could use this control to clean a little bit the shape. A little bit, but actually I'm not going to do it now because I'm kind of late and I want to wrap up having the animation sorted at a decent stage. One thing that happens in cats, and especially true in big cats, is that the scapula is being pushed up quite a lot as they walk. So one thing I can do, you can actually see something going on in this area of the screen. Can you see in those 2 frames the scapula being pushed up? So maybe I can exaggerate that. And you see this leg is bent, yes, but not as much. Maybe I can try and just go back to the 0 position of the scapula and just push it up even some more there. So this way the scapula will move up and the leg will stay more or less straight in there, thus holding the weight, which probably can work for us. And then I want to find the kickoff pose, which is at around frame 8. And in there for the kickoff pose, I really want to have the same rotation I had on the landing. So to do so, let's see if the rotation is changing. The rotation is not changing, so what's changing is this guy. So I think I really want to have the same bend of the fingers there. Or not. or instead I want to have this bend of the fingers, right? So there you go. And there you see that we're kind of breaking anatomy there. Again, this is a problem. The fact is that the cat is actually stretching the leg in there and we are not. So let's try with the scapula. And again, you see with a little help from a scapula, you can do great things in a quadruped. There you go. And then as we kick off, there is a beautiful inversion of the curve in. Let's actually show the grease pencil. There's a beautiful inversion of the curve of the leg. So this is more or less what's going on in there. And to really sell this action, I think I really need to try and achieve something similar. I won't be able to do the same thing with this rig. It's not designed for this kind of stuff. And the proportions are not helping too much, but it's not a big deal. You have to work around your character design anyway. And for this pose, I think I will cheat a little bit with the arm. You will see how in a second. So we invert, we get that nice inversion of the curve in there. And then we keep that nice inversion for quite a long time in here. In fact, you see, now that we have made the extremes, this breakdown is kind of working itself out on its own. There you go, something like this, I guess. And then we go down, I guess, to the contact. And in here, I really need to duplicate this pose don't I? So now I press play. You see that it's kind of cool the way it moves back and forward. There is a bit of the inversion here between 8 and 9 is just doesn't work, because between 8 and 9 that leg is actually moving backward a lot more and spinning back a lot more. So there you go. That's going to work a bit better. Now let's have a look at the left hand side, at the right hand side of the character, sorry. Let's have a look at that. And so the leg is moving backward and the leg is almost always straight in there. However, you see that when we go down with the weight over the right leg, there's a lot of bend going on. So just like I said earlier on, we really want to use that clavicle and extend it up, just like it happens in real cats. And here, as we go towards the kickoff, we will need to cheat a little bit. And actually, I got the kickoff pose wrong, I think. No, it's just that it's overstretching. So we really need to cheat a little bit. You see, I move the clavicle back a lot more. It's a good idea when you do that to check what happens to your textures, just in case you're not breaking anything. And by the way, the reason why I'm looking at this animation with the wireframe visible is because this way I can actually see if I'm over deforming stuff, which is not really immediately available if you don't have wireframe on. So the leg is moving backward, you see in there, and then there's this beautiful inversion that we had also in the other leg. And in fact, I'm going to try and do the same in here. Just invert that. Let me check also the motion of the scapula. So I guess I can maybe speed up the movement of the scapula forward here. So let's say this inversion is there. So just like I think I just broke the kickoff pose. Let's go back. So the problem here is that I'm working with channels, sync graph editor, and timeline. So I was jotting down keys accidentally only on one channel, so I really need to key all the channels unless I want to lose my pose. So let's go back to that beautiful inversion. Did I mention it was beautiful? I think I did. So in there, I mean, when you look at creatures and human beings in motion, you cannot stand in awe at the way these things actually work. If you were thinking about reproducing the motion, you would have to work quite a lot. So there you go. In here, there's a big inversion which I'm trying to achieve. And we move forward, and that inversion is lasting for quite a long time. I don't want the two legs to be moving at the same time, to be twinning. So maybe I will make the right one move a bit faster than the left one, just like it's happening in here. And probably I will delay this guy a little bit. There you go, something like this maybe will work. I just don't want the two guys to be perfectly symmetrical. Something like this will work. So, and then we go down towards the contact. You see that by working in terms of extreme poses of single parts, sometimes I don't recommend this as a junior, to be honest. I think at the beginning it's a bit difficult to work this way, but for a loop you can still get away with it. You see that by working with extremes, what happens is that we are reflecting the motion. So in here, between 12 and 17, the front legs are actually inverting. You see that one takes over the other, and I have the same thing in my animation as well. I didn't even consider it. If you think of it, when I was checking the reference and animating, I didn't even consider it. I wasn't trying to reproduce that. I was just looking at the poses. The idea is that the poses are some sort of milestones. If you go through them, you will get to your destination. But if you don't go through the milestones, you don't know if you're going to get to the destination. If you want to travel somewhere, you kind of have to go in that direction if you want to get there. Although the roads to a place are often mysterious. There are many ways to get there. So I don't think it's fair to say you should work the way I do anyway. So in here, there is the inversion going on and landing towards the landing pose. So I'm going to just reverse this guy, make the leg a little bit more tense in there. There you go. and then it will slap down. Maybe as it slaps down, I can animate the fingers to be to the back, then invert, and as we go down, we open up, we spread to support that weight. It's not really a requirement for this kind of animation, it's just like to do it. And then we go back to a zero spread in there and we start over again. Now I want to have a look at it. You see that this guy is running already. It's kind of soft as well. And from the top view, there is a lot of motion going on, which is good because this game, remember, will be seen from the top view. So the point of view will probably be something like this. I really need to play a prototype at this stage. I have to fix a little bit of the head. I'm not very happy about the motion of the head in there. Let's have a look at, so we did the contact for this guy. Usually I write down what I did and what I have to do so that I don't forget. And here it's particularly difficult because I'm talking in the meantime. Normally I don't talk as I animate. In fact, normally I can't even listen to music when I animate. But this music is kind of okay, I guess. Actually, my brother made it, so maybe I like it because he made it. Who knows? So in here, I have this contact. I'm not very happy about the way this contact happens. It's a bit too vertical, and I kind of feel like I could contact even earlier. Maybe I can just move the leg a little bit more forward so that the contact will be a bit arched on the way back. Let's see. I'm not really sure this will work, but we will see. And let's see if on the right side we have the kickoff in here. I'm not very happy about this kickoff. I find it's a bit hard. So you see that again, as we leave the floor, there is a beautiful inversion of the shape in there. I really want to achieve that. I can't stand not having it. So there you go. I'm going to just invert the shape in there, move it to the back, maybe even invert with hi Neron. Yes, listening to music, I forget what I'm doing when I listen to music, because the moment I think about the music, the fact that I enjoy the music distracts me from the animation in itself. Now I put the music just because it's a Twitch, and I thought maybe it's going to drown a bit of the noise of the microphone. I thought, although I did a recording and the noise is still there, I really need to work on that mic, because in theory I have a decent mic, but I never sat down or had the time to sit down. So I'm inverting the pose in here, and then notice how the left leg is actually anticipating the right leg. So I'm quite happy with keeping the right leg a little bit more to the back and even indulging a little bit more, a little bit longer. And maybe I can raise, let's see what happens. Maybe I can move to the back a little bit of the pelvis there. And in here, I can, for the contact, let's save, I want the contact to be relatively straight as a leg. Then maybe one thing that I can do is I can lift up this hip a little bit to take that weight of the contact. Normally I wouldn't animate frame by frame. There you go. And now I have my galloping animation. Yeah, it can be better, I think. But I mean, this is ready to go in game and to see if it works. And if you think of it, I started it at about 6:20 and it's now 7:34. So one hour, more or less, 1 hour and 10 while talking. So I guess if we were on our own, we would be faster. I really like the slapping action of the foot in here. And I want to reproduce it in the other legs, but I think it's better to go in game and check this animation out in game rather than fixing it too much. Now I want to try a bit of overlapping the tail and then call it a day. And Neyron says the point of in animation are the things. Yeah, we can't do several things at a time. Oh yes, please, yes, that's sacred words right there. So you can't really do several things at the same time. Although a lot of my students claim they do when I tell them not to watch movies or not to listen to music as they animate. They claim that they are multitasking. But in my opinion, whenever I have anything else that I'm doing as I animate, I am much slower in animating. I mean, I feel almost crippled. And I'm so angry at myself for forgetting what I was doing as well. So normally I have notes that I write down as I animate, because even without music I get distracted. So in here, so maybe I'm not giving a good example as I animate live with music. At the same time, I'm not giving a good example as I animate while talking, because this is going to slow me down quite a lot. So in here, I'm going to make the tail, and I'm going to maybe, there you go, get a decent pose going on in there. And I want that pose to work also from the top view, because remember this game will be seen from the top view. So maybe I can stabilize the tail a little bit more towards the center in there. And I want to try and see what the overlapper gives me as a pose. I'm really curious. So some of you might know overlapper. Actually, let me find the shelf in which I hid the overlapper there. Are you the overlap? No, that's a workspace. Ah, there you go, that's the guy. Actually, I also have a link to the overlapper somewhere. Let me just find it. This is not the one. Yeah, I need to find it. Oh yeah, I know where it is. Just a second, guys. I need to find a link to overlapper for you. It was... there you go. That's where I linked it. Okay, cool. So overlapper. So if you go here, you can get to this dude's page, and the overlapper is... Oops, sorry, that's noisy. And the overlapper is a great tool. In practice, you give it an animation like this one. You select the controls, you run the script, and you get overlapping. It's really cool. In one of my videos, I actually used another tool which is quite useful, which is Ragdoll Dynamics, which I'm going to paste as well. Oh, nice! Your teacher created overlapper. Well done. Give him my greetings and my compliments as well. Overlapper is the thing that was missing for a long time, and I can't believe that we didn't have it in a lot of productions. You really want to have that. Now I tried this Ragdoll Dynamics, which is a fully fledged dynamic solution for overlapping stuff and doing a lot more than that. I'm not doing it justice in using it just for overlapping, but it's a cool solution. You may well want to look into it, but nothing can beat the price of Kolpakov overlapper. So let's see if overlapper is going to work for us. And I'm going to select, first of all, the objects in the order. Actually, maybe I can even start from the root from the pelvis, and then select the objects in the order. And this is going to be tough. Let me do it again so that I don't get it wrong. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And since I don't like to select things more than once in my life, I'm going to store this thing as an overlapper selection, so I know this is working. And in the options, I'm going to say don't use the first control, please. That chest, I don't need it. And let's see if this works. I could even do cycle. Maybe that's going to work. I'm not setting anything in there in the overlapper, so maybe I don't know how this is going to play out. Not quite happy about that. I should probably have set something. I'm not happy. I don't even know why I changed this thing. So let me undo this and try again. So What can I do? How can I do it? So don't use first control, softness. I don't know. Maybe I can decrease the softness a little bit. And yes, one thing I can do maybe is make sure I don't have reparent. Reparent is it's a great idea as well, Neron. In fact, I mean, what Dimitri is doing is very good work in my opinion. Very good work. So I'm having troubles with the overlapper. I'm going to give it a try with the softness a bit lower and see what happens there. There you go. Without selecting the root, it is actually maintaining the pose, but nothing happened. So I will give it one last try and then I will do it manually, just not to spend too much time fixing the overlapper in here. I'm not doing overlapper justice. It is actually a very cool tool. So let's try again. Maybe without cycle. I won't use the cycle. Let's see what happens if I overlap this way. There you go. Let's see. Okay, that could work maybe. So now I have my animation in there, but not quite happy about it. So one way you can try and keep, let's say that you don't have time to tweak the overlapper. Let's imagine that. You always have time to do it, but one thing that we can do maybe is to use this motion. How can we use it a little bit better? Maybe I can select all the overlapping controls and put them on a layer, and then on frame 1 store the pose, and on frame 17 call the pose, so that those two poses will be the same. And now the overlapper is animating based on those two poses. And from the side view, it's kind of alright, although I'm not too happy about it. I think in here is a bit too extreme, so maybe I'm going to just straighten it a little. And the beauty of it is that you can do it on, you can keep the organic motion of the overlapper and you can just tweak it on a layer. Maybe I can even, I think in here it's way too soft. I should spend a bit more time tweaking it, guys, but I am being impatient, sorry. I guess that's me. So let's see what happens in there. Okay, maybe I'm not really happy about this curve in here. I kind of feel that this would look better. There you go. Let's have a look. I could have, probably I would have been faster doing it myself at this stage, but just because I'm not spending time with overlapper and the animation really is not nice. So maybe I can spend, I don't know, the last 10 minutes experimenting a little bit more. So I'm going to select the controllers, 1, 2, and delete their animation. I want to see what happens if I set the cycle to on. I want to see if it's the cycle that breaks it. And as a softness, maybe I want to lower the softness of the root. Let's see. Yeah, sorry, I need to select the hip control in there, and then the tail. Also, I want to set the tail to global. And the reason why I want to set it to global, is because if you keep the tail on global, that means you can swing your hips quite a lot and still have the tail not translate that rotation. So that's going to work a little bit better, hopefully. Let's see. I'm a bit scared. Let's see. I lowered the softness in there. Let's see if the cycle is going to break something. That's actually quite good. That's quite good. So I'm getting there. So now maybe I can try again, and now that I found some setting that works, I can just select all these controls, don't use the first one, and overlap with cycle and see how that works. The cycle is respected. That's interesting. I'm not sure. I don't know why it doesn't work. It usually works out of the box. Let's try once more using only these controls, maybe a little bit softer. Let's see what happens. I don't know what's going on. And I think I don't want to fix it in a live, so I will hand animate it. Sorry guys. We just create a layer. I wanted to go the easy way, but there you go. One often meets his destiny on the road it takes to avoid it, right? Who knows where this quote comes from? It's one of my favorite characters, by the way. There you go. You see, if I do it manually, I'm actually getting out of it faster, just because I don't have to spend time troubleshooting the bugs. But I'm sure it's in my workflow because the overlapper actually works really nicely for most of the time. So I'm sure it's something to do with my workflow there. So let's just lower these guys. In fact, maybe I will add these guys to the layer as well. I feel like in here I could, there you go, invert the curve a bit better and give it a nicer turn. There you go. And then as we go down, let's go back to the default pose. And as we go down, I'm not even sure I'm making sense as I speak now because I'm essentially talking to myself. So let's rotate this up. And maybe let's rotate this up. There you go. Sort of works, sort of works. Repeat quote. I think the quote was, one often meets his destiny on the way they take to avoid it. Whoa. It's a trivia. Who knows that? Which movie does it come from? I can make it easier. It comes from an animated movie. There you go. Over there. I'm quite happy with the motion of the tail I got in there. Half through overlapper, half through my own efforts, but again, I didn't investigate the bug and it could be my rig anyway, I don't know. So in here, I just want to make sure that as the tail translates to the left, I want to make sure that I get a little bit more, how do you say, a little bit more stabilization so that it doesn't translate blindly like a stick. I can say that in that movie I've just quoted, there is a turtle who I think is getting the mystery is deepening, I guess. Yes. What's the name of the master of Kung Fu Panda? The turtle. I really want to have this kind of S pose there in the tail. Master Hu Wei, right? Maybe I will put it up as the last bit. There you go. And then from the top view, I'm going to set a key here. I'm spending too much time, way too much time on this tail. I should just go in game now. There you go. Oh, in English is Master Hugwei, I think. In the other languages, I don't know. And then in here, I probably don't want to zero out. I guess I'm rotating the bum a little bit too much side to side now. Let's see. Yeah, it's not fantastic animation there, guys. I'm going to close an eye on it just because I need to call it a night. Master Shifu is the mouse, is the little mouse that takes over Master Hugwei. So I will find them. I will show them on screen. So now, however, let's say that I could spend more time on the tail. Now the tail, I could spend more time on the tail, but right now I think that we have enough data on this loop for it to look like a galloping action and to put it in game and see if in game it would work. It doesn't make any sense to me to spend any more time on it. So as you can see, in just about 1 hour and 20, you can crank out pretty good animation that can already go in game. At this stage, I would probably export it as an FBX and then try it in game, mix it with the walk and see if it works from the point of view of the game. However, the prototype of the game is still not fully ready, so I think I will just call this an evening and be happy with this animation. I mean, if you think of it, if you manage to work at this speed, yes, Rolla. Yeah, I really loved Kung Fu Panda when it came out. So if you think of it, if you work at a pace for which you get some rough but working animation out in 1 hour and 1 hour and a half, and you can go in game and test it out, that means that if they tell you to change it altogether, yeah, well, whenever somebody tells you to change everything again, you can't be too happy, can you? But if you invested only 1 hour on it, well, then you can change it. Why not? I mean, it's 1 hour after all, working for free. Conversely, if you spent, I don't know, 1 week on it, then you will be much more emotionally invested in this piece and you will be much less likely to change it. So my suggestion is, if you're going for a first review, try to get to a stage of blocking or even linear blocking that tells the story and does what it needs to do, and then stops there and asks for feedback, because this way you will get to the blocking a lot faster and you will get to a feedback a lot faster. And if the feedback is going to be, that's not what I want for my movie, then well, that means that you have to redo it. So, but if you spent only a few hours on it, you will have spent just a very short time on it. So I guess this is it. Now let's have a look at Master Hu Wei for a second. I have to be careful when I when I put stuff on screen, because the AI of YouTube is so fierce. It actually finds stuff even if it's in a small window. Let's see. Yes, so this guy is Master Hu Wei. Let me stop the music. That's the one. Nice. I really loved Kung Fu Panda. Master Hu Wei is probably one of my favorite characters. And this guy is Master Shifu. I think by the end of the movie, Master Shifu actually becomes a lot wiser, a lot more tranquil. At the beginning, I think the arc of Master Shifu character is that Master Shifu has to find inner peace. He struggles with that. He is really target oriented, while Master Hu Wei has lived a long life and has the experience to know that things come with time. I think this is probably one of the first DreamWorks movie that I thought looked beautiful in terms of CG and general framing and character design. If you think of the older DreamWorks movies, they felt a lot more CG-like. This one is probably the first one that inverted that trend. It's a great movie. There is some great animation in there. It's a lot of fun. You should really watch it if you have the time. So I guess that's it for tonight. Next week, I'm going to have my first guest on my live chat, and we're going to talk with the usual bunch of people, which is Daniele, Max, and Francesca. But this time around, we will have also Simone Giampaolo, who is a director. He's been a director at Aardman Animation, and now I think he is at Jellyfish Animation as a director. And we're going to talk about networking next week for the next call. As in, how do you manage networking? Do you have to do it when you work? I mean, do you have to do it naturally? Do you have to push for it? And I got in touch with Simone because I think Simone is quite good at networking to begin with, and because he just finished a movie, a short movie in which he put together about 20 directors to make a short movie. And in my opinion, that's fantastic already. So if somebody can put together, I call them masters, you mean? I was talking about Kung Fu Panda when I said masters, right? I do call them masters if it's them, yes. So Simone Giampaolo put together a short movie with 20 directors, and it certainly takes some networking to get there. So that's why I'm really interested in talking to him. And here is take on networking. So next week on this at this very address, there will be Simone Giampaolo and the usual bunch. We will be talking about networking, professional networking, that is. So, and another thing, I have a new course on Skillshare, but I talked about it earlier, and I have a link in this very chat. I posted a link to 1 month premium membership for free on Skillshare, so you will be able to hopefully get it without having to pay. So I will post the link again. It does point to my walk tutorial, but you will be able to access the run tutorial as well from there. And I guess that's pretty much it. Thank you very much for joining today. It was a lot of fun. Actually, it was a long time I didn't have so much fun animating. And I was very stressed at the beginning because I never animated a cat. And my neck is totally stiff right now because I was thinking, will I be able to... Actually, now it's a lot better now that I think of it. Now it works a lot better. But at the beginning of the call, I was so nervous. I thought, I've never animated a cat. Will I be able to pull it off in 1 hour, 1 hour and 20? And I think it kind of works. I think I have something that could work in game. And it was fun. Thanks to your interventions as well. And thank you for joining me again. And I hope to see you soon next week, certainly, to have some more fun, hopefully. And have a good night. Bye-bye.